So you guys suggested this watch, and honestly, it wasn't even on my radar. Like, I didn't even think I was gonna like this watch, and now I'm gonna have to keep it because it's so good. Alrighty guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we have another daily driver test. Now, this is a series where I wear watches that you guys suggest as daily drivers, and then I rate them in different categories such as design, wear experience, movement, and legibility. Now at the end I add the totals and then I give it a daily driver rating, and this time we are going with the Speedtimer, or as some have nicknamed it, the Daytona, because of its obvious resemblance to the Rolex Daytona. But the Speedtimer's horological history can actually be traced back to the 1960s. In 1964, Seiko was the official timekeeper for the Tokyo Olympics. Here they unveiled the very first Japanese mechanical chronograph, the Seiko 5719, which was the predecessor to the Seiko Speedtimer that was released in 1969 as one of the world's first automatic chronographs, featuring a column wheel and a vertical clutch. The Seiko Caliber 6139, later to be worn by Colonel William Pogue on NASA's Skylab 4 mission, essentially marking the Speedtimer as the first automatic chronograph in space. Now, that's not as cool as the moon, but it's still pretty tough to deny that Seiko has a strong horological claim when it pertains to the Speedtimer's history. Anyway, that's enough rambling. Let's go through the design, starting with the dimensions. Now, the dimensions, I scored a 5 out of 5. You have a case size of 39 millimeters, lug to lug of 45.5 millimeters, thickness of 13.3 millimeters, and a lug width of 20 millimeters. Here it is on my 7-inch wrist. Now, these dimensions are really hitting a sweet spot, and it wears a lot smaller than I was expecting, so it's perfect for smaller wrists as well. Now let's talk about the case shape and finish, which I gave a 4 out of 5. That's pretty good. Obviously very vintage inspired, and you have this round case shape that almost resembles a cushion case, but not quite. No hard angles on the case at all when transitioning to the lugs, and no bevels either, just rounded off edges as the case transitions from this brushed finish on the top of the case to the mirrored polished sides. Screw down case back with the Seiko Prospex emblem etched on, and 10-bar water resistant ratings, and then this little inverted U with 1 bar means Type 1 certified level anti-magnetism, which is rated for 60 Gauss. I mean, you really have to go out of your way to magnetize a quartz, but maybe it's just because since this has more moving parts than a regular quartz, I don't know why they did that, but it's nice that they reminded us. The bezel that contains the tachometer scale. The bezel is aluminum and IP coated, and that means ion plated, which is a good thing. Basically, it's a surface treatment that hardens the aluminum and then it helps to achieve that black color. And honestly, Seiko did a good job on it. I almost thought it was actually a ceramic bezel. My actual complaint is that for $550, I wish that they would have just actually given us a ceramic bezel instead of an aluminum bezel. So that's why I didn't give it the 5 out of 5. And finally, let's talk about the crown and the pushers, which I gave a 5 out of 5 as well. Crown is not signed, not screw down, but I do love the size, and in proportion to the watch case, I think it's actually perfect. I really like the pronounced teeth on it as well. Easy to grip, pull, change the time. Pushers are good as well. Not much of a tactile feel, but more of an air pump kind of feel to it, which is oddly satisfying. Okay, now moving on to the bracelet with a score of 4 out of 5, which is pretty good, especially for Seiko, who's known for lacking in the bracelet department. This one is better than most Seiko bracelets though. Milled clasp, 2 micro adjust holes, double pushers, opens easily enough and closes with a very nice sturdy click. Laser engraved Seiko logo. I mean, honestly, nothing we haven't seen before. Solid end links on this one, but no half links. You have this vertical brushing all over except for the sides of the bracelet, which are polished and they are well rounded, so everything feels smooth on the wrist. Links use a pin and collar system, which isn't a negative per se, but it's just more of a hassle to get that nice fit. And if you lose one of those collars, forget it, man. So a few days into wearing this watch, I noticed that the vertical brushing on the bracelet clashed with the circular brush pattern on the top of the case and the lugs, and as a result, the two surfaces don't really match and blend together nicely. Not sure if this bothers you, but it definitely bothers me a little bit. And of course, these are just minor details. I actually think the finishing on this watch is well worth the price. This watch retails for about $500 to $600 depending on which colorway you decide to go with, and I will put some links in the description for you to check out. Okay, now moving on to the crystal and dial. Crystal I gave a 5 out of 5. It's sapphire with anti-reflective coating on the inside, and it's slightly domed, so it does give off some nice distortion. Now, even though the dial itself is really the star of the show, I did give it a 4 out of 5. If you don't already have a Panda dial in your collection, it's just such a nice change of pace when incorporated into your weekly rotation, especially since this is a quartz and you can kind of pick it up as a midweek grab and go piece to just kind of switch it up. And you guys already know I'm a sucker for a good quartz watch. Now, the dial itself isn't exactly white. It has more of like a subtle beige color to it, and it's not a glossy dial. It has a sandblasted finish, so the graininess creates this matte effect. Sword style hands with Fatina Lume, and then you have a printed minute track, and I really like that the minutes are above each of the indices, which are applied, and they have this faceted design to them, so they really catch the light from all angles. But only 4 lume markers at 12, 6, 3, and 9, and then that framed date window which sits at 4:30, and I will get to that in 1 second. We don't see too much text on the dial, just the applied Seiko logo and a printed Prospex emblem below it. And finally, we get to the 3 subdials. Dial at the 3 o'clock displays the current time within 24 hours. Dial at the 6 is going to be your minute counter for when you activate your chronograph, and the subdial at 9 o'clock is going to be your running seconds. Since the running seconds register is so small, from a distance, it's kind of impossible to tell that this is a quartz watch, which is a nice added perk. It doesn't really matter to me, but I know that it matters to some, so that's why I'm mentioning it. And I'm going to talk more about the functions of this watch when we get to the movement section. But before, I wanted to just talk about a couple of things that I don't like about the dial. First, I think we can all agree we don't want a 24-hour subdial. Personally, I think a lot of us would have loved to have a tally of the hours that have elapsed while using the chronograph, or at the very least, just swap the minute counter with the 24-hour subdial, so the minutes being counted by the chronograph are on the larger and more legible subdial. And second is how recessed the date wheel is. I mean, it's sitting pretty deep underneath the actual dial itself. And I get it, it's because the chronograph subdials are doubling also as the solar panels, and they are a couple millimeters thick, but they are thick enough to make it so that you can't really read the date wheel from certain angles. And on my particular watch, from 11:35 until midnight, that date is completely illegible. But overall, I really love the design, definitely more than I thought I was going to. All right, now we're gonna move on to the wear experience, starting with the comfort, which I gave a 5 out of 5. Now, let me tell you, this watch is a watch that you can wear all day. Because of the quartz movement, it's so light. You honestly just forget it's there. It's super comfortable. Bracelet conforms nicely to your wrist. And if you play around with the fit enough, you can get it just right. Even with one micro adjust hole, you should be good to go if your wrist swells up. Okay, now let's talk wardrobe combination, which I gave this watch a 5 out of 5. This is such an important category for daily drivers because it's a watch that you're gonna have to pair with whatever outfit you got going on. So whether it's business, whether it's casual or business casual, it's gotta be versatile. Now, given that it's more of a sports watch, it wouldn't be my first choice for more conservative workspace, but you could definitely still rock this with a suit on a nice leather strap, or I don't know, do you guys like the steel bracelet better? Both look great. You can also just wear it casually with a t-shirt and shorts. And the great thing about the black and white Panda dial is that it goes with virtually any strap choice. Plus, it's 20 millimeters, so you have a lot of options. And on a leather strap, it's not a loud watch, so it's not gonna become like the centerpiece of your entire outfit. Okay, and up next we have the wear and tear category, which I call the baby driver rating. Guys, every watch is prone to wear and tear. Now, this is a negative category, so starting from 0 all the way to 5, the more points it gets, the more delicate your watch is, and that's what makes your daily driver a baby driver. It's a watch that you just gotta baby it around, you know, you don't wanna scratch it or bump it. It's one of those where you're just hyper aware of your wrist. Now, seeing as how this watch has a sapphire crystal, it has a brushed case, quartz movement, 100-meter water resist, I scored this watch with a 1 on the baby driver scale, and 1 means that whatever scratches or marks you get on this watch, well, it's just extra patina for that vintage look. All right, now let's go over the movement category. This watch is sporting the Seiko Quartz Movement V192A. Now for accuracy, I rated this watch obviously a 5 out of 5. This is rated plus or minus 15 seconds per month, typical quartz. Now for reliability of the movement, I scored this watch with another 5 out of 5. Quartz movements are accurate, they're tough, and this watch is solar powered, so on a full charge of battery, it will last about 6 months, so you can stick it in a drawer, pick it back up a few weeks later, and it's still set and ready to wear. Plus, you don't have to worry about getting it serviced, which is an additional plus. Okay, and as far as complications go, I rated this watch a 4 out of 5. So it has the date, which is great for a daily driver, and then the chronograph as well, which is a nice bonus. And I cover the chronograph function more in detail. I'm gonna post a video up here somewhere, and then I show you how to manually adjust the hands if they get misaligned, how to use the split second time function, the tachometer, you know, all that good stuff. So I'll post a link to that video somewhere in the description if you miss it up here. But just to give you the general gist, you press the top pusher to start the chronograph function, and as you can see, the hand sweeps at 5 ticks per second, so it's really mimicking that vintage chronograph feel. You press the top pusher again to stop the chronograph. The sub dial at 6 will let you know how many minutes have passed, and then you press the bottom pusher to reset the minutes. Now this chronograph stops automatically at 1 hour, so you won't be able to time anything past that, unfortunately, which is kind of a bummer, but it makes sense since there's no hours register anywhere on the sub dial. Okay, and finally, let's move on to the legibility category. First up, is this watch an easy reader? I would give this watch a 4 out of 5. Surprisingly, despite the busy dial, the faceted indices and the seconds track maintain excellent legibility. The subdials are okay as well, but sometimes when you're under direct light, you start to notice how transparent the solar cells actually are, and you can't really see because there's a little glare that they give off. Okay, and then finally, let's go through the Lume. So this watch has Lume bright on the hands, so it's plenty bright, but only 4 hour markers actually have Lume. Now, the reason for this is because there's just not enough room on the dial with everything else going on. So Seiko has released another version of the Speedtimer, and it actually has all lumed markers, but they had to increase the diameter of the case to 41 millimeters, and the minute track had to be migrated over to the chapter ring, and I don't know, it just doesn't have that same charm to it, at least for me. What I'm trying to say is, I get it, all right? So the Lume score is gonna be a 3 out of 5, you can get away with it. Okay, so let's total all the scores that we've gotten so far. Let's start from the strongest points to the weakest. And really quick, guys, if you like this video and you want to see more daily driver tests, go ahead and like and subscribe this video. I am a smaller channel, so it will help YouTube recommend more of my videos to you so that you don't miss out on any future watch content. Okay, so let's go through the scoreboard. So the strongest point of this watch is actually a tie between 2 categories. We have the movement category, which is a 28 out of 30 for a 93%. And the wear experience category, 18.5 out of 20, also for a 93%. So if you're looking for a daily driver that has both great movement specs and also really enjoyable wear experience, then I would definitely consider getting the Seiko Speedtimer. Again, guys, I'll leave the link in the description for you to check out. And now coming in second is going to be the design. Not too far off though, totaling up 27 out of 30 for a 90% score. Which leaves us with the weakest point of this watch, the legibility, 14 out of 20 for a 70%. And I'm not saying that this watch isn't legible, 70% is actually really good, it's just that everything else scored so high on this one. Okay, so adding up all the categories brings the total to 87.5% daily driver score. So that's a B+ for the Seiko Speedtimer, placing it in 3rd place so far for these daily driver tests. So comment down below and also let me know what you think about this score. Do you agree with it? Or what would be your score for the Seiko Speedtimer? And as always, guys, thanks for watching and I will see you in the next one. Bye.